practices and procedures of the committee continue to apply during this electronic meeting. If we encounter any technical difficulties, we may take a brief recess while they are resolved. Thank you for your patience, and we will now proceed with the meeting. So I'm just going to look to see whether it looks as if he has joined us yet. So I am going to ask everybody who is not a committee member, if you can turn your cameras off until we call your particular application. Okay. So in the meantime, then, while we're waiting for him to still join, I will confirm with him when he joins whether he has any disclosure of interest, but I'll ask our two committee members, do you have any disclosure of interest to declare?
I have none.
Okay, seeing none. And I'm going to look for adoption of the minutes for the meeting Wednesday, October 26, 2022. Okay, thank you, Cecil. I'll take you as a first. Mark, I'll take you as a second. Any comments on the minutes at all?
I have no comments.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask, I am not going to vote for on the minutes as I was not present for that meeting. Can I ask all those in favor of accepting the minutes from the last meeting? Thank you very much, Cecil and Mark. And when Wasif joins, I will confirm that with him as well. I'm still gonna give him a minute. I went out of order and I don't think I did the full mandate. So I'm going to just move on that the committee is bound by the Planning Act to accept each application based upon its ability to meet 4 tests, that the application is minor in nature, is desirable for the appropriate development or use of lands, and finally is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The process for tonight's meeting will be conducted in the following manner. The applicant and/or agent will be called upon at their option. They may provide a brief description of the minor variance application they have applied for. The committee members may ask questions of the applicant and/or agent, after which anyone with direct interest in the application will be given the opportunity to speak either for or against the application. Once a motion is put forward by a committee member, there will be no further input from the applicant or anyone having interest in the application. After a decision is made, notice will be sent out and there will be a 20-day appeal period. Anyone having interest in the application may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the decision of the committee. After 20 days, the decision will become final and binding. If a building permit or other approval are required, they may be filed during the appeal period. However, no building permits will be issued until the appeal period is over and the decision becomes final and binding. A respectful decorum for this evening's procedures is expected of all present at all times. Okay, so it does look like Wasif is here. I think he looks like he's there. Yes, I am. Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm just going to quickly just speak to you directly because I jumped ahead on the agenda just to get things moving along. So just if you have any disclosure of interest to declare.
I have none.
Okay, and we went for the adoption of the minutes and just want to know whether you're in favor of accepting the minutes from the last meeting or opposed.
I'm in favor.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we are back onto the agenda in its correct order now. So we are going to proceed with the application portion of this meeting. The first application that we are going to be looking at is A43-22 for 49 Locker Drive. It is submitted by Orana Inc. The relief that is being requested is to permit uncovered stairs leading to a below grade interest within the east interior side yard with a minimum setback of 0.2 meters from the interior side lot line. The bylaw requirement is that uncovered steps are not permitted and that 0.3 meters on one side and 1.2 meters on the other side is the bylaw for this particular request. Eric, can I confirm that notice was served and if any additional responses were received, as I know you have sent us a couple already?
Notice was served, and it was just the 2 emails and the voice message that I did provide to the committee, and then staff did speak with another resident on the phone who was also in opposition, but that was everything.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. For the applicant, staff has written a report and is recommending approval of this application subject to 6 conditions. Those conditions are: 1, that the subject variance apply only to the property municipally known as 49 Locker Drive and as illustrated in figure 2 herein, or this decision shall become null and void. 2, that an unobstructed pedestrian path of travel to and from the steps be maintained at all times on the subject property, or this decision shall become null and void. 3, that an unobstructed pedestrian path of travel to and from the rear yard be maintained at all times on the subject property, or this decision shall become null and void. 4, that the below grade entrance not be used as a principal entrance access for the dwelling, an accessory apartment, or home-based business, or this decision shall become null and void. 5, that the owner applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void. And finally, number 6, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Yeah, this is Deep on behalf of Orana.
Okay, and have you received a copy of the report?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and I apologize. Can you just introduce yourself fully just so we can get the full name?
Absolutely. My name is Deep Sahuta. I'm representing Orana Inc. We're the applicant on behalf of the homeowner.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any questions or comments in regards to this application?
We agree with the recommendations made by the planning department. We will be clearing out the west side yard to access the backyard, and we would be able to meet all their requirements that way.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. And does any of the committee members have any questions for the applicant or staff? Cecil.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. The staff, got a couple of questions here. I was just wondering, my first question is, how common is this kind of variance within the general area or within the town itself? That's question number 1.
Through you, Madam Chair. Over the past few years, this has become a very common variance across the whole town. I can't say specifically in this specific neighborhood, but across the town, very common. We probably do at least one of these variances once a month, I'd say.
Okay, so it is fairly common. Thank you very much. My second question is that I see that transportation has signed off on this application, and I was wondering whether you can comment on some of the metrics that transportation would use, such as with respect to safety, etc. Could you comment on some of the metrics?
Through the chair. So the transportation section wouldn't really have much of a review on an application like this. As you can see in the report, it's not for an accessory apartment or home-based business. So simply just because they won't be able to meet the Ontario Building Code requirements for egress. So with that being said, there isn't the anticipation that additional parking would be formulated from something like this.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Thank you very much, Cecil. Any other? Mark and then Wassef.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff. So, you know, just to follow up on your point there, Eric, around the occupant would not be allowed to have an accessory dwelling unit in the basement. One of the public comments that we received was in reference to the fact that this relief and the installation of the door would then cause additional traffic on the street. I'm assuming that concern by the member of the public would have had to do with an assumption that then there'll be an accessory dwelling unit in place, and additional occupants in the house as a result of this, the addition to the door. So I guess we could assume that wouldn't be the case with this particular property, because they wouldn't be allowed that additional unit in the basement. Is that correct?
Through the chair. So based on how it's been designed currently, we wouldn't be able to issue a building permit for an accessory apartment. That's not to say, though, that there couldn't be more modifications made to the actual house so that then they create an entrance to the accessory apartment through the main dwelling entrance. Like that is a possibility. So I'm not ruling out the fact that you could have an accessory apartment there, but based on what's been done right now, it wouldn't work. So yeah, the assumption is that it was for an accessory apartment, and I guess it may have been operating as that illegally before. So I'm assuming that's where most of their concerns are coming from. But unless there's changes, it won't be permitted because we won't be able to issue a building permit.
Okay, so then if this relief is approved, it itself would provide for the ability to create an accessory apartment in the basement.
No, that is correct. They'd have to do other substantial changes and require a building permit for that if they wish to pursue that.
Right. Okay. And then just to clarify, so the relief they're looking for is the difference between 0.3 meters and 0.2 meters on the interior side lot, which so we're talking about a relief of 0.1 meters. Is that correct?
That is correct. Typically with these ones, it's usually people are seeking relief for 1.2 meters, but in this case, the house actually has 1.2 meters on sections on both sides or on both yards. But then there's a slight garage bump out on this. So it would be the east interior side yard, which then pushes this to be the 0.3 side, even though where the steps are located, the dwelling is set back 1.2 meters. So in this case, yeah, it is only a 0.1 meter difference for the variance.
Okay, I appreciate it. Okay, that was clarified for me. Thank you. Eric, back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Wassef, you can go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, excuse me. I guess maybe to town staff, the condition number 3 for unobstructed pedestrian path of travel to and from the rear yard be maintained at all times. Is that for the east side of the lot or the west side?
Through you, Madam Chair. In this situation, it's actually for the west side. Typically, when we've dealt with these ones, you'll recall that most people design the steps that go up and down. But given how many risers are going down, I think it's 10 to 12. It'd be a significant task to do that, to go back up again. And because they actually have the 1.2 meters on the other side yard, we presented the owner and applicant with other option. You could design the steps that go up and down, or you can just make sure that the space on the other side is cleared. Currently, there's 2 trees that actually block access to that yard. So the owner has agreed that they would be removing that. So that's why we put that in as a condition.
Okay, just if I may, with a couple of follow-up questions to that, the trees that are to be removed, is there a gate there behind because I can't see that in the picture in the figure on slides on page 7 rather, in figure 3, but would there be an access door there to the fence, to the yard?
I'm not sure if there's one there currently. Perhaps the Deep could comment on that, but if there isn't, there would have to be in order to satisfy that condition.
So as per my understanding, I don't have any images that are readily available, but I think there is a fence there, but there's no door. If needed, if staff recommends, we're happy to install the door.
Okay, perfect. And then the last question along the same lines is the existing equipment. Again, I'm back on figure 2 now. The existing equipment to be relocated again on the west side of the property. Should that and the door access that we just spoke of, should they both be as conditions perhaps in the report, or I guess for the final motion? Question for perhaps my fellow committee members.
So sorry, Wasif, are you asking whether we should add a condition saying that a gate access to that west side is provided via gate, and that the air conditioner gets moved?
Yeah, or whatever utilities there are on the back property or back of the property there on the west side. Yes, exactly. And yeah, so gate, because I know it talks about the trees, but even if the property owner removes the trees, great. But if there's no door there or the existing equipment isn't relocated, I think that that wouldn't really meet the spirit of what we're trying to do with condition number 3. I think it's just ambiguous, in my opinion.
So, Eric, would you be able to comment on that? Are those two things blocking access to that side of the house?
Correct. There are the gate matter, and then there's some equipment, and it's noted on the drawing actually equipment to be removed. Staff just usually use more of a general wording for a condition like that because we already know, like, it's been flagged internally that that's what's going to have to be done. And keep in mind, there are inspections that would follow once a building permit's properly issued for something like that. And if there's other conditions, the inspector has to look at those things as well. But if the committee feels it's necessary to make it more specific, you guys can definitely do that.
I would agree that we add clarity to what we're trying to do. Like my colleague said, it's to satisfy the spirit of what is being proposed.
Okay. Did you have any additional questions or comments, Wasif?
No, I do not.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from committee members? I have a couple that I'll ask, but I'll just see if any of the committee members have any questions. Okay, so my questions, Eric. So on that matter that Wasif was just asking about, does condition number 3, that an unobstructed path, does that satisfy the need that there would be a gate and those utilities, whatever they are, would need to be moved?
Madam Chair, yeah, it does. But if, like I said, if you want to make it more specific to say maybe that an unobstructed pedestrian path of travel to and from the rear yard be maintained at all times on the subject property, which may include the addition of a gate and the removal of all applicable equipment or something, like we can do that. Okay,
we'll take care of that when it comes to the motion portion of it. I also had a question, Eric, if you can clarify for me. So in the condition number 4, that says that the entrance, the below grade entrance not to be used as a principal entrance, access to the dwelling, an accessory apartment or home-based business, or this decision shall become void, null and void. And in the staff report on page 2, after the bullets, There is, the paragraph says it should be noted, and I know, Eric, you did comment to this already, but I just want clarification. It should be noted that if through the building permit process, the owner applicant were to demonstrate that the principal entrance for an accessory apartment or home-based business located within the dwelling would be accessed through the principal entrance of the dwelling, then such uses could be permitted subject to meeting the applicable parking requirements. Do these contradict each other? Having it as a condition stating that it's not allowed, but then having in the staff report that if these modifications are made, it may be allowed?
Madam Chair, no, because the condition was worded to specifically say that the below grade entrance can't be used as that access for that. Whereas this is just stating those uses are permitted ultimately on the property. It's just if you use the below grade entrance as the primary access for them, it won't meet building code, but you could do it another way. So that's what that's saying.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate the clarification. Okay, so if there's no further comments by committee members, is anyone in attendance here to speak either for or against this application?
Jeff and Carolyn Hassel would like to speak against.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you want to let us know just a couple of comments on why you're against the application. And I do know that we have had some correspondence from you as well.
Well, the proposed changes don't address any of the concerns that we put in our letter there. None of those are satisfied. My primary question is, had 49 Locker Drive requested a permit for that side entrance, would it have been granted given the closeness to the property line, or would it have been rejected?
Eric, did you want to respond to that?
Sure. Well, if a permit would have been applied, we would have been in the same situation we are today, whereas zoning compliance needs to be demonstrated first. So they still would have needed to done the minor variance and obtained approval of it.
Okay. I have a question about the point 0.1.2 variance. By our calculations, mine and Jeff's calculations, based on city plans that we have for our lot, our street, and so on, where they're below grade accesses with the cement stairs, from the side wall of the cement stair to the property line, by our calculations, is only somewhere between 3 and 4 inches. You guys are saying that it's 0.2 meters, but we are saying no, it's more like 0.1 or less meters. So that should we, when we've been into the bylaw office to speak to the clerks there regarding this, in order to be informed as to when the meetings would be, what the step was, so on and so forth, we keep hearing this comment, well, just put up a fence. Well, just put up a fence. Well, you know what? We've been living here for 32 years, and we have never required a fence on that side because we had neighbors who were respectful and kind and whatever, and it was never needed. And now all of a sudden, we have neighbors who go around the legal processes. They build a staircase without even telling us that they're going to do this. And to my understanding, as I said, there's only maybe 3 or 4 inches from the outside wall of their staircase to our property line, which means that the just put up a fence argument doesn't work because we cannot properly dig holes for the fence posts. And I would like to challenge anybody to tell us how we could do that if this structure is allowed to stay. It should not have been allowed in the first place, and it should not be allowed now. That is our biggest not complaint, question, biggest concern about this. Our second biggest concern is that we will lack privacy, because if you come into my dining room and look down their wall, you can see plain down into their basement. They can see plain up into my dining room. We use our dining room a lot. I don't want to be observed eating dinner or walking around my house. That's my second concern. And my third concern is definitely the parking requirements and the busyness on the street. As I mentioned in our letter, our end of the street, almost every household on this end of the street has 3 or more vehicles, which means that, yes, many of the residents park on the street. We park on the street throughout the day. We park on the street when we have company. We have no choice. We have 2- and 4-car driveways, and they're full. And there's 5 cars in my immediate neighbors who have more than 3 cars, or 5 houses in my immediate neighbors who have more than 3 cars. We need the street parking. Every time somebody comes over, either from our house or another house on our end of the street, another parking spot is gone. And we can't handle any traffic on this side of the street. So I would say, I don't know what the wording in the document is, what are applicable, that they have to prove that they will be within parking requirements. What are those parking requirements?
Okay, so is it the 3 things will respond to our?
Those are my 3 main things. I have a dozen others, but whatever, it's.
So I'll let Eric, if you don't mind, if you wanted to respond to any of those that you can, I'll let you speak, Eric, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Regarding the specific setback, we have to go off what's been presented to us. A qualified designer.
I would much prefer if somebody would actually come out and measure specifically and prove to us that there's more than 3 or 4 inches there, because I know that there is. So I don't, these people, they're sweet talking. They'll tell you what you want to hear, but there is not more than 4 inches between their wall and our property line.
So
I'm just going to interrupt momentarily, and I'm just going to remind that we do have to maintain a respectful decorum during this. I do see that the applicant does want to respond. I'll let Eric finish his comments, and then I'll let you respond to that, okay?
Yep, thank you. I was just going to mention that perhaps Steve could speak to that.
Oh, okay.
But for the other thing, the parking requirement. So if you're adding an accessory apartment, that means you just have to demonstrate 3 off-street parking spaces, which this property would be able to achieve. And the same goes for a home-based business. So basically your dwelling requires 2 spaces, that's the minimum. And then if you're adding an accessory apartment, or if you're adding a home-based business, you have to be able to provide 1 additional space.
So then whoever, so the parking would be provided in their driveway?
Yes, the garage, the driveway. I believe it's a double car garage, so technically 4 spaces.
And can they be held to that? If we find that there is street traffic and street parking happening, will they be held to that?
We can't prevent someone from parking on the street. And in addition, that's assuming that they're going to go the legal route to actually legalize an accessory apartment or home-based business, because as you'll see in the report and the conditions, right now that's not permitted.
Right, but we don't know for sure what they're doing down there because we have not spoken to them about it. So everything I'm going to say now is that we are assuming.
Understood.
I can't prove any of this, but what we have observed so far is that they have brought in some hairdressing equipment, chairs, and so on and so forth, stuff that would support a hairdressing business. And I think that they're trying to open a home business.
Okay, so we're not going to assume what people are going to do or not do, because that's not part of what this is. If they're allowed to do the home business, I'll let the applicant speak. You wanted to respond to the distance?
The distance and the actual proposal, the criteria of this proposal, we're not proposing any additional apartments. Within this proposal, we're not increasing the occupant load of this building. So the parking requirement does not increase. It'll be the way it was. Secondly, if there's a dispute with the measurements, we obtained our property line location from a survey done by a land surveyor, a professional land surveyor, and we have followed the measurements on that and the actual measurements of the walkout that was built, based on which we are coming about 0.1 meter short, which is in terms of inches about 4 inches short. So we're literally asking for 4 inches of non-compliance with the zoning bylaw. But if needed, if we are happy to provide the survey, a copy of the survey, and they can refer to the measurements there.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, and then I would just to the lack of privacy question, I would just say, because if the applicant does decide to make the entrance legal by going through the front doors, essentially, of the primary residence, that would help with the privacy part for you, both parties, because the traffic is, regardless, if there is any, is going to be going through the front door, any additional traffic. So that will help with that concern as well. So thank you. I appreciate you guys attending this and giving your concerns. And I will ask staff if they can speak to the applicant to provide you with a copy of that survey.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, you're welcome. Thank you. Is there, sorry?
Yeah, I'm still confused on how that side entrance is going to be used, if it's going to be used at all. The below grade access. Are you saying that traffic will simply be going through the front door and exiting through the front door, and that there won't be like it won't be used except in the case of a fire or something like that?
Eric, I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Sure, yeah. So I mean, unless they make modifications to have like a legal entrance that meets fire code, that would be access through the front door. Right now, the below grade entrance would just be for a finished basement. And perhaps Deep could speak more about that, what the owner's intentions are. But no, if they did go the other route to legalize an accessory apartment or a home-based business, that's not to rule out that people couldn't use the below grade entrance in the side yard. It's just the property still has to demonstrate that it has a proper entrance that meets fire code, which could only be done if they modify the front entrance of the house.
Oh, okay, but so they would be using that side entrance as much as they wanted them. So we would have that foot traffic.
You couldn't, yeah, we couldn't stop someone from using that. It's just, that's not the, the entrance that demonstrates the code compliance.
Yeah. Okay. Also, I know that years ago, that's a long time ago, 43 Locker Drive had applied for a similar side entrance, and they were denied and told that they had to put one in the back of the house. Has that changed, or is that still available?
I'm not sure what the history is on that. I did look up that property and I saw that there was a building permit canceled in 2002. So I'm not sure what the discussions were at that time. Like, there wouldn't just be a flat out no, It depends what you're doing. Like in either situation, you'd have to comply with the minimum setbacks. If you're not, you could go the variance route. If it was in the rear yard, you wouldn't run into those situations, but perhaps at that time, maybe they were trying to do a basement apartment and they ran into the same issue that this property has. I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So we have absolutely no recourse here. This has basically been approved.
No, the
Point
committee,
back.
we haven't made our finding whether we're going to approve this or not. And regardless of what we do, there is a 20-day appeal period after we make our finding what we're going to do. So you can appeal any decision that the Committee of Adjustment makes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else here to speak either for or against application A43/22 for 49 Locker Drive?
No, Madam Chair, there are no further participants.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so seeing that there are none, can I please ask for a motion on the application? Cecil.
So, Madam Chair, I thought that we had another condition that we possibly wanted to include in the application prior to approval. I believe my colleague Wasif raised that with respect to the gate. Is that something that we need to have ascertained, or?
So you can make a motion right now, and part of your motion can include a change to the existing conditions, and then we would discuss and vote on that motion.
Okay, then, Madam Chair, I move to approve minor variance application A4322 for 49 Locker Drive, subject to all existing staff conditions, and in addition to one other condition, that a gate be placed on the subject property at location of the trees, and we can word that in as we need, as it is minor in nature and it's desirable and appropriate for the use and development of the lands, and it's in keeping with the general intent of the bylaws and the official plan. I move to approve.
Okay, and do I have a seconder for this? Wasif, thank you. Any discussion?
Chair, if I could just jump in, I think it's probably better if staff just modify the third condition rather than create a new one. We could just say that an unobstructed pedestrian path to travel to and from the rear yard be maintained at all times on the subject property, which may include but not is limited to the addition of a gate system and the removal of any utilities or equipment within the west interior side yard.
Okay, Cecil, would you be okay if your motion was as Eric just worded and amended to that?
Madam Chair, I'm in agreement.
And Wasif, are you okay to second that motion with Eric's wording for it?
I am, absolutely.
Thank you. And any further discussion on the motion as it has been discussed? Sorry, amended's not the right word there, discussed. Seeing none, may I ask all those in favor of approving application A43-22?
Sorry, Madam Chair, just for
Sure.
clarification, we need to approve an amendment first and then vote on the main motion as amended.
Okay, thank you. So can I please have a vote on the amended motion with Eric's wording on it, please? All those in favor of the amended motion on the table. Okay, that is carried. And so now I would like to ask for a motion on approving
The main motion as amended, so incorporating that amendment.
Thank you very much for the wording there. I appreciate that. The main motion as amended. So I need someone to make a motion. Thank you, Mark. And a seconder on that. Thank you. Cecil, any discussion on the amended motion?
No?
Seeing none, all those in favor of the amended motion for A43-22? All those opposed? Okay, so the motion is carried. A43-22 has been approved, subject to the 6 conditions. And just to make a note that that 3rd condition has been amended as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Okay, we are now going to move on to application A47-22 for 48 Linton Avenue, submitted by Mohammed Arshad. The variances that are being requested with this application are to permit a minimum setback from the rear lot line of 0.1 meters for an accessory building or structure, and to permit a minimum setback for an interior side lot line of 0.1 meters for an accessory building or structure. The bylaw requirement is 0.6 meters for both the rear and the side lot lines. The next variance is to permit a minimum setback from the rear lot line of 0.0 meters for the eaves of an accessory building or structure. And the second one, to permit a minimum setback from an interior side lot line of 0.0 meters for the eaves of an accessory building or structure. And the bylaw requirement is that encroachments, including eaves, encroachments, including eaves, do not apply to accessory buildings or structures. And then the last variance is to permit a maximum lot coverage of 44%, to permit a minimum setback from the rear lot line of 5.3 meters for an addition to the dwelling. The bylaw requirement is 33% and 7.5 meters. Now, there's a couple of things to take note with this particular application is that all of the above variances requested are to address existing conditions. And for people who may have received an earlier report that was circulated, would have been different variances written on that report. And the new report is to reflect new information that was brought forward to staff. Eric, can I confirm that notice was served and any responses received?
Notice was served and it was just the 3 pieces of correspondence, which were letters of support.
Okay, perfect. And for the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of the application subject to one condition, which is that the subject variances apply only to the property municipally known as 48 Linton Avenue and the existing accessory buildings and structures as illustrated in the figures herein, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, and have you received a copy of the staff report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and if I can please ask you to introduce yourself.
My name is Mohammed Arshad.
Okay, and do you have any comments or questions in regards to the application?
Yeah, the only thing is I would like to request for this minor variance, because if I had known, we would do according to the bylaws, but somehow my contractor, he did not educate me, and now it was just one of my neighbor. He was concerned about the water of one of the structure, which is the west side of the property. So when we built the structure, and the roof was put in, the corrugated roof. And then my contractor ordered the eavesdrops, and that took like a few days. And during that time, the rain happened, and the water went to my neighbor's side, and he got worried. Instead of talking to me, if he had asked me, I would just say, we are gonna put the eavesdrops anyway. But he made this complaint, and then later on, when we did it, he was satisfied. And that's why we got all the letters. But that was the only point that this was initiated by the neighbor. Other than that, they're all happy. Like, we respect each other. We are good neighbors, and so this was the only reason that this complaint went, and we didn't know at all. If I had known, like I said, I definitely would build according to the bylaws and the code. But the structure has been built. It's a very good looking structure. I mean, the posts are 3 feet down in the ground, all concrete. So honestly, doing any alteration means that it has to be done all over. So if you can keep this, the city came in and they recommended all the encroachment. We took care of that. So there's a 0 encroachment, and we have like 5 to 6 inches setback from our fence. So like I said, we're not causing any harm or anything to the neighbors. They're all okay. They're satisfied. I spoke with everybody. So I'm looking forward to for the decision so we can keep this structure.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Does any of my committee members have any questions for the applicant or staff? Mark.
Yeah, question to through you, Madam Chair, to the applicant. So just to confirm, if I understand correctly, the eavesdrops are now installed, and in your opinion, there's no further concern of water that from the roof of the structure entering onto the neighbor's property. Would that be correct?
Correct. Yes.
Because that's mitigated by the eavesdrop.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from committee? Okay, I do not have any questions myself. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak either for or against this application?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. If I can please ask for a motion on application A47-22, please. Cecil?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve minor variance application A4722 for 40 Linton Avenue, subject to all staff conditions, that is, its minor nature, desirable and appropriate for the intended use of the development of the lands, and it's in keeping with the general intent of the bylaws and the official plan. I move to approve.
Thank you very much. And is there a seconder? Okay, Wasif, thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion at all? Okay, seeing none, if I can please ask all those in favor of the motion. Okay, and that is carried. All are in favor. A47-22 has been approved, subject to the one condition as outlined in the staff report in the 20-day appeal period. Okay, thank you very much. We are now going to move on to application A53-22 for 16 Durling Rock Street. It is submitted by Sinthuja Sivantharaja, and I apologize if I pronounced your name incorrectly. The variances that are being requested for this application is to permit uncovered steps leading to a below-grade entrance within the west interior side yard with a minimum setback of 0.2 meters from the interior side lot line, and to permit a The bylaw requirement for that first one that I said is uncovered steps are not permitted. The second variance requested is to permit a minimum aggregate setback between the uncovered steps and an adjacent dwelling of 0.8 meters. And the bylaw requirement is interior side lot line of 0.3 meters on one side and 1.2 meters on the other side. Eric, can I confirm if notice was served and any responses received?
Notice was served and there was just one piece of correspondence in opposition, which was provided.
Okay, thank you very much. For the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to 5 conditions. Those 5 conditions read as 1, that the subject variance apply only to the property municipally known as 16 Durling Rock Street, and as generally illustrated on the drawing submitted with this application or this decision shall become null and void. 2, that an unobstructed pedestrian path of travel to and from the uncovered steps be maintained at all times on the subject property, or this decision shall become null and void. 3, that the existing air conditioning unit and existing utilities be relocated as necessary in consultation with the applicable utility agencies and the town's building services section to a location that does not impede access to or from the uncovered steps, or this decision shall become null and void. 4, that the owner applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void. And finally, 5, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Yes, Madam Chair, we're here.
Thank you very much. And have you received a copy of the report?
Yes, we have.
Okay. And may I please ask you to introduce yourself?
Here it's myself, Sintuja, and my husband, Alil Prakash. We're both here today.
Okay, thank you. And do you have any questions or comments for the committee in regards to this application?
Yes, just a general comment is we have put in a building permit previously. The engineering design was had a miscalculation of the steps. So our building permit inspector told us to apply for another permit, and we spoke with Antonio, and he asked us to submit a minor variance. So most of the stuff under the conditions have been already looked into the building permit and was already approved. It was just for the uncovered steps, because first it looked like it was supposed to be above grade, but then with the miscalculation, when the side entrance was cut, it looked like we needed below grade, and that's why we've applied for the minor variance. So the utilities that was there where the steps are and the air conditioning have been already relocated, and when the building inspectors came, they've said okay to it. They've looked at the drainage as well. He's given his thumbs up, and we have a confirmed, and as well as the window and the covering of the windows. If you see the report, he's given his okay on all that. So yeah, just wanted to bypass that comment.
Okay, thank you very much. And does the committee have any questions for the applicant or staff in regards to this application? I don't see any questions. I have just a quick question, Eric. This is just a clarifying thing. The applicant was saying that when they originally did it, I guess they thought they were going to be able to keep them level. And then because of the miscalculation, they had to go down. What would cause that to happen?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm assuming there would have just been an engineering mistake on the drawings. But if it was just supposed to be an at-grade door, there'd be no need for a variance. So that's why there was never a process like this before. As soon as you go below grade, that enters into steps, retaining wall, and then you get into the encroachment. So.
Okay, perfect. That answers my question. Thank you very much. Any questions from committee before I go to the public? Seeing none, is anyone in attendance here to speak either for or against this particular application?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. If I can please look for a motion on application A53-22. Mark?
Madam Chair, I move to approve application A53-22, subject to the conditions set forth by staff, seeing that it's minor nature and meets the remaining tests.
Perfect. And a seconder? Thank you, Wasif. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may I ask all those who are in favor of the application? Okay, that is carried by everybody. So application A53-22 has been approved subject to the 5 conditions as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period. Okay. So we now are on to application A54-22 for 51 Thompson Street, submitted by Matrix Ready Mix Limited. The variances that are being requested is to permit a minimum setback from the interior side lot line of 3.6 meters for the principal building, and to permit a minimum setback from the interior side lot line of 1.5 meters for a conveyor belt system attached to the principal building. But the bylaw requirement is 3.6 meters plus 0.3 meters extra for each additional 1 meter of building height in excess of 12 meters, and is also based on a proposed building height of 23.9 meters. The minimum setback from the interior side lot line is 7.2 meters. Eric, can I please confirm that notice was served and any responses received?
Notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, and for the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to 2 conditions that read as: 1, that the owner applicant obtain approval of the site plan application SP 14-21 to the satisfaction of the town, or this decision shall become null and void. And 2, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
I'm here, Madam Chair. My name is Mona Al-Shari, and I'll be the agent speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you very much. And can I confirm that you received a copy of the report?
I can confirm that I have received and read a copy of the report, and we're in agreement with the conditions as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And do you have any comments or questions in regards to this application?
I do have a presentation. If I'm able to give it, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
No problem. Good evening, Madam Chair and committee chair members. My name is Mona Al-Shari, and I'm a planner at Bowsfield Incorporated. We're a planning consulting firm in the city of Toronto. I'll be speaking with respect to the minor variance application at 51 Thompson Street in the town of Ajax. Before I begin, just to give a brief overview, we did submit a site plan approval application back in December of 2021. There was a resubmission that took place in July of 2022, and we received comments from staff, and we've been working with them to address them. So we're nearly towards the end of that process. Next slide, please. With respect to the site itself, it's located at the southwest corner of Thompson Street and Doughty Road. You can see that it's located within an industrial area. The surrounding uses include manufacturing and with outdoor storage. With respect to the subject site itself, it's currently vacant and it's fenced off. And for the surrounding context, I'll focus on the southern property, as well as the one adjacent to us to the west. Next slide, please. Immediately south of us is a site that's currently occupied by automobile uses, and it's OK Tires. In the right-hand side image, you can see that the building is built right to the lot line, and the northern facade of the building, so the one abutting our site, has no windows. It's currently a blank wall conditions. I'll also note that I have spoken to the representatives from OK Tires, and they did not address any concerns with respect to the application or minor variances requested. Next slide, please. Immediately west of us is currently a wood manufacturing facility. So they have their building located in the eastern portion of their site, closest to our site, and the more west portion includes open storage. So just highlighting the industrial uses in the area. Next slide, please. Just to give a very quick policy context, the site itself is designated as general employment within the town's official plan, and it's zoned as heavy employment uses. Both the official plan and the zoning bylaw do permit the proposed cement batching plant. Next slide, please. This is an overview of the site plan of the cement batching plant. You can see that it consists of a one-story vehicle maintenance building and plant. There's also a silo that's attached to the main building, as well as a conveyor belt and a hopper. The building is situated in the eastern portion of the site due to the triangular shape of the site itself. In the rear area of the site, it allows for truck maneuvering, so the location is ideal just based on the configuration of the site itself. Next slide, please. The south elevation gives an overview of how the building is proposed to look like. The building on its own is only 8.6 meters in height, but when you attach the silo to it, which is about 15 meters in height, it becomes the overall height is 23.8 meters. This image also highlights where the conveyor belt will be attached to the site, and it's also an enclosed structure, so that's on purpose to limit any impacts. And you can see in this image as well that it attaches to the hopper. Next slide, please. As you noted earlier, the requested variances are only two. One is to provide a minimum setback of 3.6 meters from the interior side lot line to the principal building. As noted in the image in front of you, you can see the interior side lot line is the southern property boundary of the subject site. And then the second variance is to permit a minimum setback of 1.5 meters from the interior side lot line to the conveyor belt, which is attached to the main building. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation today, but I just want to say that the proposed variances do facilitate the development of a manufacturing facility that's permitted under the OP and zoning designations. I'll also highlight that the proposed uses and setbacks, with the exception of the interior side yard, are within the applicable zoning permissions. And lastly, the interior side yard setbacks that we're proposing from the building and conveyor belt would not result in any negative impacts. Based on this, we conclude that the requested variances satisfy the four tests under Section 45 of the Planning Act, and we recommend that they are approved by the committee this evening. And that concludes my presentation today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you, Madam Chair, or any other committee members may have, as well as the public.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that presentation. That answered a couple of my questions already. Does any of the committee members have any questions or comments for the applicant or staff? Cecil?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, to the applicant. Is the conveyor belt totally enclosed to address matters such as dust and noise? You answer that?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, the conveyor belt will be an enclosed structure.
Okay, and so thank you very much. And my next question through you, Madam Chair, would be to staff. I see that Ministry of the Environment is approval is a requirement, and I was wondering whether the town's issuance of a permit subject to the MOE approval as a first being granted?
Through you, Madam Chair. The MECP, so the ministry, that's just the acronym, the ECA, so the environmental compliance approval that they would need is something that will be written into the site plan agreement for the site plan application. So it is ultimately something that the business needs to operate. So it may not be that it has to come at the time of building permit, but it would have to be done before occupancy.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I have no further questions.
Thank you very much. Do any other committee members have any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. I just had one question for staff. I did see the applicant did comment on it, and I did see it in the report that the revised submission and it's waiting on approval. Is the outcome of this meeting dependent on that approval at all?
Well, it's a few things. They're still addressing comments from other sections of our department. But yes, ultimately, zoning compliance is one of those things.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Do any questions from the committee before I go to the public? Seeing none, is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak either for or against this application?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I please look for a motion on application A54-22? Cecil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve my various application A5422 for 51 Thompson Street, subject to all staff conditions as it is minor in nature, desirable and appropriate for the use of and development of the lands, and is in keeping with the general intent of the bylaws and the official plan. I move to approve.
Thank you very much. And a seconder. Wasif, thank you very much. Any discussion at all? Seeing none, can I please ask those who are in favor of approving application A54-22? And that is carried. Everyone has approved application A54-22, subject to the two conditions as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period. And we are now moving on to application A55-22 for 40 Ainley Road, which is submitted by MD Khorshid Alem. And the variances requested are to permit a required parking space to include part of the public street or road to a maximum distance of 3.0 meters. And the bylaw requirement is 2.5 meters. Eric, can I confirm that notice was served and any responses received?
Notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, and for the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to the two following conditions. The first one is that the subject variance apply only to the property municipally known as 40 Ainley Road and as illustrated in figure 2 contained herein, or this decision shall become null and void. And 2, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building service section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Hello.
Hi there. Have you received a copy of this staff report?
Yes, I confirmed I received it.
Perfect. And can I please ask you to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name Imad Samad. I'm a qualified designer. I'm representing the homeowner for this application.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And do you have any questions or comments in regards to this application for the committee?
No, just we're proposing for a future second suite at the basement level. And as you know, we need additional parking space for this second suite, and that's why we ask for a minor variance for the encroachment over the public street. And I'm happy to answer if there is any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Does any of the committee members have any questions, comments for the applicant or for staff? Cecil.
Just to clarify, thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Just to clarify for my own benefit, I'm not sure whether I'm reading it right, but is the third vehicle allowed to legally overhang the curb? And if so, by how much?
No,
yeah.
I can speak to that. Yeah, to you, Madam Chair. The car wouldn't be overhanging the curb. So the language used is a little deceiving, but that's just the language used in the zoning bylaws. So when we say part of the public street or road, what we mean is the actual boulevard. So instances where properties don't have a sidewalk, you can't really tell where your property line starts, but it doesn't start where the curb is. It's further up. So there's a portion of, you know, what would be your driveway, but isn't actually your property. It is the boulevard. That's what we're referring to.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee at all? Seeing none, is there anybody in attendance who would like to speak either for or against the application A55-22?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And can I please look for a motion on application A55-22? Wasif.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move that the committee approves application A55-22 on the basis that it is minor in nature and subject to the two conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Thank you very much. And a seconder. Thank you, Mark. Any discussion on the motion at all? Seeing none, may I ask for all those who are in favor of the motion? Okay, and all those are, everybody is in favor. A55-22 has been approved and is subject to the two conditions as outlined in the staff report in the 20-day appeal period.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are at our last application for tonight, which is A56-22 for 1401 Harwood Avenue North. And it is submitted by Shlashko. I knew I was going to get this one. I'm not even going to say it. Villages. And I apologize for that. And the variance requested is to permit a minimum landscape buffer of 4.0 meters adjacent to Harwood Avenue North. And the bylaw requirement is 9.0 meters. Eric, can I confirm if notice was served and were any responses received?
Notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, and for the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to two conditions as follows. One, that the owner applicant obtain approval of site plan application SP5-22 and enter into a site plan agreement with the town to the satisfaction of the town, or this decision shall become null and void. And two, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Madam Chair, my name is Bryce Jordan. I'm a consulting planner with GHD Limited in Whitby, and I'm here representing Schlegel Villages on this application.
Thank you very much. And have you received a copy of the staff report?
Yes, we have, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And do you have any comments or questions for the committee in regards to this application?
Madam Chair, just the comment that we're certainly in agreement with the staff report and its rationale for why the requested variance meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. And with regard to the 2 conditions, we are very close to finalizing site plan approval and certainly hope to be applying for the building permit required under the 2nd condition as soon as this variance becomes final and binding, should the committee choose to approve it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Does any of the committee members have any questions or comments for the applicant or staff in regards to this application? Cecil.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. My question really is in regards to the benefits of green space. So in going from 9 meters to about maybe 4 meters of green landscape buffer space, I was wondering, how does the town plan to make up for this greening deficit? And that question is the staff.
Through you, Madam Chair. So there's various other landscaped areas throughout the site. It's not just the landscape buffer along the front property line. There's buffers along the interior side lot lines as well as the rear. I haven't been involved in the processing of this one, so I can't say if there's other green initiatives like green roofs involved, but there's various opportunities throughout the actual parking lot and other areas to make up for additional planting.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering whether the applicant can add to that response.
Through you, Madam Chair, unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the site plan to display, but there are a number of amenity areas internal to the site, which is going to be of much more use to the residents and occupants of the building. The buffer we're talking about along the arterial road is highly planted and, as it mentioned in the staff report, provides a landscaped arbor and the like. But in reality, a setback along that arterial road is not of as much value to the residents as the internal open space that's being provided.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Cecil. Any other questions or comments from committee members? Seeing none, I just had a question. Looking at the diagram, Sarah, you don't have to move to it, I don't believe, but figure number 2, when I'm looking at that, is this variant, is this to accommodate the parking requirements? It just the way it kind of, there's a bit of a, it looks like the parking requirements are on a bit of an angle there. And is this to accommodate that parking? And probably Eric can respond to that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that is correct. For the most part, there's about a 6-meter buffer that's maintained, but you can see the design of those spaces, they go, they encroach slightly more. So that's where that 4 meters comes from.
Okay, and as staff knows, I don't love this area of Harwood because of the angle that it's on. And seeing that the parking is going to intrude, is this going to impact the sight line of people driving around that bend in the road at all? Is it potentially going to pose any risks at all?
No, I mean, keep in mind that that space is still set back 4 meters from the property line. Then you have the boulevard before the road even starts. So staff do not anticipate any sightline issues.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Any further comments from committee at all before I go to see if the public? Seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak either for or against application A56-22?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I please look for a motion for application A56-22? Wasif.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the committee approve application A5622 on the basis that it is minor in nature, meets the 4 tests, and subject to the 2 conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Thank you very much. And a seconder? Cecil, thank you. Any comments at all on the motion? Seeing none, may I ask for all those who are in favor of the motion? All are in favor of application A56-22. It has been approved subject to the 2 conditions as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period. So that concludes our application portion of tonight's meeting. We will now move on to other business. Does committee or staff have any other business that they would like to present at this time? Seeing none, I will ask for an motion to adjourn, please. Wasif and a seconder. Cecil, all those in favor? Thank you very much, everybody, for your patience, and we are adjourned.